And I'm not saying that toxic femininity is a good thing, but I'm saying it's a much more understood and valid reaction to a system of oppression versus toxic masculinity, which oppresses.
Okay. So even if I grant you that.
Hey guys, my name is Modi and you are welcome to Modi Speaks. So we're going to be looking at this video I stumbled upon just this morning. It is about Charlie Kirk and it has gone very viral, averaging about 860,000 views. Okay, now this video was discussing one of the debates Charlie Kirk had with Oxford students in the UK. Ironically, the same student he was debating in this video is the now president of Oxford Union, who went online and made a post celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, this was a student who had the opportunity of having a conversation with Charlie Kirk when he was alive. But this guy felt nothing except happiness when he found out that the young man whom he was debating just a few weeks ago was publicly assassinated. Now, I just want you to think about that, okay? Just think about it for a minute. Now, the creator reacting to this video claimed that Charlie Kirk was destroyed in the debate by the Oxford student. He captioned the video, "Oxford student outsmarted Charlie Kirk and the crowd can't stop laughing." I can't wait to see what he's talking about. So without further ado, guys, let's just dive right into the video.
In this video, we are going to see Charlie Kirk go on a long, pointless rant when pressed on toxic masculinity. We're also going to see the crowd repeatedly laugh at Charlie Kirk because he's outsmarted by an Oxford student. As usual, let's watch the video in full, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts towards the end.
Hey, Charlie. So I wanted to return to a comment you made earlier about the generation of lost boys. You likened them to the Peter Pan movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So when we're talking about Red Pill Media as being a large influence, and I wanted to define that. It's a reference to the Matrix, in which a lot of these media heads talk about unplugging yourself, and it's about waking up to the realization that there is an active attack on masculinity, that men's rights need to be, that men are being oppressed in a way, and that men's rights need to be advocated for, many people have attributed the Red Pill Media to rise in this almost generation of lost boys. I kind of wanted to get your opinion on do you see this generation of lost boys as a failure of say masculinity, or are there potential other factors, economic, social factors, such as, the death of the American dream, increasing costs of living in America, increased costs of education? Are there any other reasons as to why this generation of lost boys might exist, or do you basically attribute it to
I acknowledge all of that, of course. I mean, one of them, it's a very good faith question, and thank you. In America, we made a stupid decision in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s to shut down our factories in the middle part of the country and basically disenfranchise and deindustrialize tens of millions of working class men and tell them to go move to the cities and learn to code. I said this in the previous Q&A, but I can again, which is that a family used to be able to be supported on a single income of 35 weeks of labor a year. Now it takes upwards of 60 weeks of labor a year. However, given all the economic and social and all those factors, the largest of all of them is the cultural and the educational that has infantilized men and hyper-feminized them in the messaging, in the outreach, and in the treatment. And so I can give you specific examples. In
what way has the education system infantilized men?
I mean, every possible way, from the hypermedication of young men, from in the core curriculum in America, we learn about toxic masculinity from ages 8 in public schools in California and in New York. We never talk about toxic femininity. Do you agree that there's toxic femininity as well?
I mean, I think it's an unfair double standard.
Why? How can femininity not be toxic if masculinity can?
I'm not saying they can't be.
Do we teach kids about toxic femininity in our schools? No, tell me yes or no.
I actually loved how Charlie Kirk immediately asked him why it is okay to teach toxic masculinity in schools and universities, but no one ever mentions toxic femininity. In universities, colleges, and classrooms around the world, you hear this term over and over and over again. Toxic masculinity, toxic masculinity. It is on the curriculum. It is in gender studies lectures. It is all over TikTok and Instagram. It is blamed for violence, abuse, war, greed, power struggles, even climate change somehow, okay? But here is a question nobody ever wants to ask. If we are talking about toxic masculinity, then why are we not talking about toxic femininity too? Is it because it does not exist, or is it because modern culture, especially academic institutions, have created a one-sided narrative where only men can be the problem? Yes, some men can exhibit toxic traits, but that toxicity isn't only exclusive to men. Women have it too. Some women weaponize emotional manipulation. Yes, some women use beauty or sexuality to gain power over others. Passive-aggressive behavior, undermining others through gossip or exclusion, weaponizing victimhood, leveraging the legal system in bad faith. For example, making false accusations. So the pendulum swings both ways, but it is very much concerning when the society solely shifts the blame to men and keeps shouting toxic masculinity when nobody ever mentions toxic femininity. And Charlie asked him a very direct question. In all your years of academia, have you ever been taught about toxic femininity? I mean, that was a very powerful question right there, and I'm eager to hear what he has to answer. Mind you, the creator reacting to this video claims that this Oxford student turned Charlie Kirk into a laugh-generating clown. So, let's continue.
No, tell me yes or no.
I mean, I think that they come from two very different places. I think toxic masculinity comes from a level of misogyny, where I think toxic femininity often comes from a reaction to a misogynistic system which fundamentally oppresses and systematically oppresses women. And I'm not saying that toxic femininity is a good thing, but I'm saying it's a much more understood and valid reaction to a system of oppression versus toxic masculinity, which oppresses.
Okay. So, even if I grant...
What are these people clapping about? This guy said something extremely dumb, and these people are clapping. Every single person in that room who clapped for that statement is a clown, and that is very disappointing to say the least, seeing as we are talking about Oxford students here. Oxford for that matter. These guys are supposed to be brilliant, but... how disappointing. This ignorant Oxford student falsely claims that toxic femininity only exists because of misogyny. Oh, women are just reacting to the oppressive system created by men. But that is not true. That is just a stupid way of shifting the blame and only focusing on men. Toxic femininity exists on its own. It is not just a response. It is a pattern of behavior that can be just as destructive, manipulative, and self-serving as any form of destructive behavior. A woman with toxic traits will still be toxic regardless of whatever type of man she has in her life. She could be raised by a wonderful father, have the most caring husband, and still be the most selfish, emotionally manipulative woman you have ever known. Toxicity is not gendered. It is just human. Anybody can have it. But when people like this Oxford students and those Oxford clowns clapping for him act like women are only reacting as if they are never active participants in toxic behavior, they are creating a culture of moral immunity where only one side gets blamed, okay, and the other side gets a free pass. If a man abuses power, we call it out, and we should. But if a woman abuses power, society says, well, she's just responding to centuries of oppression. Come on now.
Grant you that. Even if I grant you that, are they teaching toxic? Is that term ever been used in a school that you know of?
What term?
Toxic femininity?
No, it's not.
Oh, that's weird. So only one sex gets criticized and called toxic. Maybe that creates a backlash.
Well, because one is creating a system of
Oh,
oppression.
no, that's
the other
your
is a reaction to
interpretation.
it.
No, you can make every excuse under the book that you'd like, but only one chromosome set gets criticized, called that they're terrible and awful, and that women basically need to be like, go into the corporate world with no reservation, and young men see this pattern in the West and in our country from the authors, from the curriculum, from the music, from the movies, and we see, and of course, again, in the educational system proper, we have seen the infantilization of the young male. And so it's just, again, we know the data, you did agree to it, that young men are checking out completely, but we're actually living under a hyper-feminist West that is toxic. What does that mean? Speech police, feelings first, emotion over reason, community over individualism. We're seeing this. And by the way, is it working? Is the West stronger as it's become more feminine in the last 30 years? No. In fact, our morale is weaker. We're more suicidal. Our fertility rates are down. We have lost the balance. We've lost the yin and the yang between the male and the female. We lost what worked, and we have hyper-platformed. Your own prime minister, Boris Johnson, when he was talking at a summit, said we need to actually make things more feminine. Could you imagine if he said we need to make things more masculine? How does that sound to a dock worker in Brighton or someone in Essex? We need to make things more feminine? No. Instead, we need to restore the balance that God created man and women. And right now, and by the way, you want an example? Adolescence. How does that movie Adolescence not broadly generalize a theme that, first of all, doesn't exist? Secondly, is like a slow motion, like humiliation ritual for the young boys of Britain. Could you imagine if there was a similar movie criticizing young women that are like how they are the ones that are driving men away, about how catty they are, about how they don't want to be. No, it's fine. I'll just complete the point. I could give you data point after data point, and I would ask you the question, has the West grown stronger the more feminine has become?
Actually, Charlie Kirk is cooking this guy, and maybe you don't feel that way because these people in the room are just a bunch of clowns. Oxford is a joke at this point. Oxford is a joke. All those guys seated in that room are just a bunch of clowns, okay? The fact that they're not clapping for the wonderful points being made by Charlie Kirk doesn't mean that he is not making those points, guys. He is making them. They're just stuck up in their own fragile feelings to even understand what Charlie is talking about.
Okay, you've said a lot.
Yes, that's how a Q&A works. You ask the question and I answer, so I am...
You've said a lot. And the ignorant crowd goes, ha 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 ha. Like he made some really remarkable points. What are they teaching these guys in Oxford these days? Guys, has Oxford turned into another indoctrination camp? I mean, what is wrong with these guys? And by the way, Charlie Kirk made a lot of wonderful points. Now, the creator reacting to this video, whose name, by the way, is Just a Confused Brit, that at least tells me a little bit about him, okay? He is not just confused, but he is also dangerously ignorant. Now, he claims that Charlie was, made fun of. He was outsmarted. So let's just watch a bit and see more of how Charlie Kirk was, outsmarted by the brilliant Oxford feminist.
The speaker, that's how it works.
That's my thank you. Okay, so on your point about adolescence, I don't think adolescence is a generalization. We are not saying that every young boy in the UK is like this. We're not saying every young boy goes through this process. It's an example of what can happen when people fall into this kind of media. I think it's it's more of a story or a warning to what can happen to people that fall into these bubbles, who don't find the help that they necessarily need, that can turn violent. And this is a perfect example of toxic masculinity, in which the boy feels like he's not affirmed in his masculinity and takes that out on women. We've also then seen within men, the largest contributor to men's deaths right now is male suicide. But I would argue that is not a factor of feminization, but instead a factor of masculinity. The idea that men can't be in touch with their feelings. You talked about a feeling first approach being effeminate. So men are simply not allowed to engage with their feelings at all. Men not allowed to talk about their feelings. These are large contributors to a massive problem within men's spaces that lead to what is the highest contributor to men's death, suicide. And I think this idea that, men simply go back to work and if they're economically assured, then suddenly everything is fine. And, men's mental health was never an issue before the 90s or whatever it was when we used to start affirming men's mental health, I think is an unfair, it's an unfair point to make. And I think it doesn't speak to a lot of issues that a lot of young men face. And I think it's a dishonest way to go about talking about this conversation.
Okay, so which part would you like me to respond to?
Let's go to the point about male suicide and masculinity not being allowed to affirm.
So to your point, if it was true that men have always been miserable, why have the suicide rates gone up?
Well, because we've started recording suicides better. It's not to say that suicides didn't occur on this level. It's just we simply have better ways of recording. And
That's rubbish, and you know it. Body bags are data that transcends any sort of manipulation. A self-inflicted gun wound or being hung, it was not like a mass reporting issue 60 years ago in this country or in the West. It is a material fact because we know it's happening in the Anglosphere. It's happening in Australia, it's happening in America, it's happening all across Europe, that suicide rates of men are going up. Depression is going up.
Yes.
They are correlated together. It's not a reporting issue. There's something undergirding it. And in fact, just one other thing, your own prime minister endorsed adolescence. He sent out a tweet saying, I was shocked to the core when I watched this film and everyone should watch it. So that is an endorsement from the top leader, other than, you know, the king of this country, of endorse. I don't even know, may the king endorse it.
I mean, an endorsement is not a generalization.
Well, hold on. No. He said, I'm troubled to the core of what this could become. And you have to, again, that is one example of thousands that I could give, one that is the most applicable to here to this country. And I guess I would just ask this question in closing. Do you think men would be happier if they are married and providing for a family?
I don't think marriage or the institution of marriage is the only way a man can be happy.
That's not what I said. I said generally happier. Do you think men will be generally happier if they're married, providing, and have children?
I don't think that's a necessary factor to contribute to men's happiness.
What is your solution to bring about male happiness in the West? Mine is men get married, have children, and provide. What is yours?
It's a big question.
It's a big question. It's a big question. This is a big question. Now, this is the guy who supposedly outsmarted Charlie Kirk, who turned Charlie into a laughing stock. This guy who thinks the simplest question you can ask any real man is a big question. Well, I can't wait to listen to the mumbo jumbo he's going to come up with. Here we go.
I think an affirmation of their emotions, their emotional states.
We've tried that.
I think an openness to allowing men to express themselves in whichever way they want, even if that is in a more effeminate way or a Western, typically effeminate way. I don't think it's about ostracization. I don't think it's about promoting one simple institution of living and disregarding all of those else. Men are free to live single, men are free to be in gay relationships. I don't think that the institution of marriage privileges one to a life of happiness over any other way of living.
So, of course, you have the agency to do that. With all due respect, have you been to London the last 10 years? Men can do whatever they want.
I live in London.
Are they happier? Men can dress how they want. Men can act how they want. They can go to any club. Has it worked?
Yeah, but also we've had austerity. There are other factors outside of simply just.
Do you see what you're doing? Respectfully, you're scrambling for an excuse to get away from the truth that's right in front of you. I mean, maybe men should get married and have children.
Okay, but I think
because it's worked for 2,000 years.
I just think it's a very dishonest way to go about this argument. That there's only one issue.
Interesting. Can I challenge you on that, though?
Sure.
Why is it that the men of much poorer African and Asian countries don't have suicide issues, yet they have no money?
How do we know that?
Oh, we know. Again, by empirical third-party reported data from the UN, from the US State Department, there is not a suicide crisis in sub-Saharan Africa. There's not a suicide crisis in Southeast Asia with young men. So explain to me that phenomenon. They're materially wealthy. They're not materially wealthy, and yet they're harming themselves. So why would you then say it's austerity?
Wait, sorry, say that again.
Okay, you're looking for another explanation for male unhappiness.
Yes.
I'm pointing to you to a part of the world that actually does value marriage and does have children, but they have no money. So therefore, how could you say it is a material problem why the men of London, who can dress how they want, go to whatever bar they want, are not happy?
Because it's more than one reason. Like, there are multiple factors. It's not even just economic. There's economic, there's social, there's like religious pressures. There's so many, you cannot boil down a societal issue to one.
And I acknowledge
issue.
that, right? I even at the beginning, remember, I'm saying the biggest, the one that has an exponent on it, is that we have a biological urge that God gave us when he designed us, which is to be fruitful and multiply, for men to provide for the family. And when we suppress that, and we say that you can go live whatever lifestyle you would like, as already happens in the West. We have Exhibit A. We have a serious suicide, mental health, anxiety, depression issue. So I would just ask you to think over the next couple of days, months, or years, why is it that men in countries that barely have toilets and do not have 2 pounds to rub together but they do have kids and they do have a wife, are much happier than someone with a big flat in downtown London. Something to think about.
I mean, I think happiness is a difficult idea to conflate in that sense. I mean,
No,
there are other
suicide.
duties.
They're less likely to kill themselves. Forget all these happiness indexes. If you kill yourself, you're not happy, right? So these poor countries do not have male suicide problems. Why?
I do not know.
Think about it. Thank you very much.
That was actually quite interesting back and forth. I literally feel the student on the right, he had Charlie in a bit of a chokehold for quite a while. Now, the last question, what it is that I would say is when you're debating someone like a Charlie Kirk, and you see this with Donald Trump, these people will just pull things out of the sky without any proof, without any information or individuals to point at to say, this is where I got this information from. You see that so many times. And I feel like that's what it is that Charlie Kirk done at the end there. To say in Africa or any third world countries and whatnot, and not just Africa, any third world country at all, to say that those types of places, they don't have individuals who commit suicide or suicide rates are high and whatnot. To say that without actually stating where did you get that information from, you know, if it was, you know, research data, well, who conducted the research or the data? To say that without actually not stating where you got that information from, that's just a bit disingenuous for me. And I can't take that information serious because I've seen a lot of people on the right, including a Charlie Kirk, just tell and spread lies purely because of the fact that it helps the narrative and the argument that it is that they're making at that time.
So this creator, despite witnessing this debate unfold, still believes that this Oxford student has Charlie in a chokehold. Wow. This is delusion on steroids, guys. Now, to claim that what Charlie said about sub-Saharan African countries and even low-income Asian countries have very much lower cases of male suicide, to claim that Charlie was outrightly lying about that is just laughable. Guys, I'm African, okay? From sub-Saharan Africa, okay? Born, bred, okay? And I can genuinely tell you that even if Africans may not be as economically wealthy as other countries, even if most of us don't necessarily have the luxuries of life, we are still fulfilled and happier. And one of the major reasons for that is because we believe in marriage and having children. Every single individual is expected to be married and have kids during their lifetime in Africa. Are there those who are not so lucky to be blessed with children in their marriage? Yes. And you can clearly tell that they don't feel as fulfilled as others who have children in their marriage, but they feel better than those who were never married. Are there those who end up unmarried? Yes, okay, they are few by the way, but they exist. But you can clearly see that they are very unhappy with their lives, especially when you compare them to their counterparts who are married with children. So guys, I'm sorry for disappointing you guys with this video. I was here to see Charlie Kirk getting owned by this Oxford student. Instead, I saw an ignorant student getting schooled by the legendary Charlie Kirk. Now, I almost called out this creator, this YouTuber, for his ignorance, but when I remembered that he is just a confused individual, I pity him. But as always, guys, these are my thoughts, these are my opinions. Please feel free to share yours in the comment section below, but do so respectfully. Also, if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, honestly, I don't know what you're waiting for. Subscribe to the channel. Like and share this video to keep people informed, and consider joining my membership or supporting the channel in the way that you can. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to catch you on the next one. For now, peace.